I feel like this is going to be my first video where I might actually have some butthurt fans out there. So don't worry, I got you guys covered. Got you some lotion for your butthurt. Happy June, everybody. It's Axel Ablaze here with my latest video. Now, when it comes to the word reboot, you have a lot of varying reactions to it. Some people hate reboots because they absolutely trash the source material that they came from. And then when it comes to other reboots, such as Full Metal Alchemist, people love them because it fully adapted the source material that it came from and gave people a satisfying ending that they were looking for. So with that in mind, I thought I would cover anime that need a reboot. But I kind of wanted to be more specific than that. I want to cover the top 5 anime that need a reboot and realistically could have a reboot. So with that in mind, there were a few anime out there that I thought didn't quite qualify to make this list. So for example, if the series has not finished, such as D and Angel, no reboot yet, because it needs the full source material before it can have it. If it's a super long series, like Bleach, where it's kind of unrealistic to cover the full anime up to that point and then the new material, that also gets a pass. And with that in mind, I'll have a different video covering the anime that need to continue to cover the last arc. Another one that might be on that list is Katekyo Hitman Reborn. It also can't be a new series that did bad, so Tokyo Ghoul is also not going to be on this list. Believe me, it deserves a reboot after what happened with the second season, but because of how new it is, it's pretty unrealistic that it's going to get a reboot anytime soon. And last but not least, it can't have already had a reboot previously. So examples like Soul Eater are also not going to make this list. Believe me, Soul Eater is another one that it deserves to be finished, and it might make it on the same list that Bleach and Katekyo Hitman Reborn might land on. But because it already had a reboot, probably shouldn't have a second reboot. And with Fire Force on the way, it doesn't really make sense to adapt both. So, with those out of the way, let's cover my top 5 anime that need a reboot. We begin this list with my number 5 pick. The anime that I want to have a reboot, but I think is the least likely out of the 5. And that is Rave Master by Hiro Mashima. A series that I absolutely love, admittedly more so than Fairy Tail, which will be in another video, but I think is also the one that is the least likely out of the 5. So the original anime for Rave Master came out in 2001 through 2002 and lasted for 51 episodes by Studio Dean. For those wondering, Studio Dean is also the studio that did the original Fruits Basket anime, Log Horizon Season 2, the Junji Ito collection, and Seven Deadly Sins Season 3, which, for those wondering, A1 Studios was the one responsible for doing the first 2 seasons of Seven Deadly Sins, but they gave up the rights to do Season 3 because they're doing Sword Art Alicization, War of Underworld this fall instead of Season 3 of Seven Deadly Sins. They kind of had to choose between which 2 series was going to be more profitable, and Sword Art was kind of the obvious choice, for even though a lot of us might disagree. So why do I think this one is the least likely to happen, but still has a shot? Well, that's because Fairy Tail's final season is almost coming to an end, eventually. It was about to happen at some point. And for those that are looking for more Hiro Mashima content, well, Eden Zero is still too new to have an anime. Like, by all means, like, there's really just not enough out there. I want to say there's about 7-ish volumes worth of content in terms of the manga right now in Japan. We're getting volume 3 this week, so that's great. But there's really not enough out there for, I would say, even a 12-episode anime at this point. So for those that want more Mashima content, why not go back to Rave Master? Because there was a lot of stuff that happened in Rave Master that never got to the anime. Like, by all means, I think some of the best stuff happened after Haru's dad died in the anime. And the anime only lasted about 10 or so episodes after that point. So there's a lot of content out there that could be adapted for a new anime today, and they could cut down on the 51-ish episodes that they had previously, streamline it, and have another great long series. But at the same time, I do want to be realistic. They might not want to animate Rave Master again, just because there was a lot of content from Rave Master that got copied into Fairy Tail. So some people that aren't familiar with Rave Master might think, oh, this series is copying Fairy Tail. So while I would love to see a new Rave Master anime come out, I do think that out of my 5 on this list, it is the least likely that could get a reboot. But it still has a chance. For the number 4 entry on my list, this one is one where I feel like it has a slightly better chance than Rave Master to get a reboot. It's still slim, but I think it still has a shot. And that's Shaman King. Yeah, Shaman King. Also from 2001 to 2002. There are quite a few anime that are going to be kind of from that time period that we're talking about. So, Shaman King, like I said, from 2001 to 2002, was done by Studio Xebec, and that's the studio that's responsible for D and Angel, another one that we already talked about, To Love Ru, Yuna and the Haunted Hot Springs, and Keijo, series about butts. Now, this one is a little bit tricky, just because Studio Xebec got sold to Sunrise, and the copyrights for a lot of the series that Xebec had is reverting to IG Port, which was the holdings company that owned Xebec in the first place. So there's potential issues there with rights and whatnot that could have issues with Shaman King. But the reason why I think it has a shot over Rave Master to actually have a reboot is just because there's new content out there. Now, some people might dispute, hey, you said that D and Angel is a series that's still going on, and Shaman King has a sequel series, so it can't have a reboot, if you're following that logic. And you're kinda right. But that being said, Shaman King Flowers and Shaman King the All-Star are technically sequel series to the original Shaman King series. So the source content for the original anime is complete at this time. So by all means, it definitely could get, reanimated. And I think it has a better shot at getting an anime reboot just because there is more content that's being made. So for the studios that want to kind of have the old Shaman King fresh in people's minds once more content comes out for the All-Star, I think it has a shot. But again, like I said, because the copyright stuff is kind of in limbo because of Xebec being sold to Sunrise, there are possible issues. But at the same time, I do think it has a slightly better shot than Rave Master at getting an anime reboot. But that being said, I think the next 3 series on this list definitely have the best shot out of the 5. The number 3 entry on my list goes to Gantz, an anime that came out in 2004, produced by Studio Gonzo, and it had 26 episodes. Now, Studio Gonzo is responsible for other anime, such as Hinomaru Sumo, Rosario Vampire, and Afro Samurai, among other popular series. Now, the reason why I think that Gantz has a very good shot at having a reboot is twofold. So first off, the anime only covered the original 90 chapters of the manga. And then for about 5 episodes after that, it had anime-specific episodes that weren't in the manga. Now that being said, the source material itself is 383 chapters. So there's literally over 290 chapters that were never animated. So there is a lot of material out there that could get adapted into an anime. Potentially a really long one. Other than that, Gantz has also had other productions leading up to this video. It's had 2 live movies, and it's also had a CGI movie back in 2016. So with that in mind, I think that there's still a lot of attention on Gantz that I think the fan base would really appreciate having a reboot for the anime. And with all the admittedly dark series that are out there that are very popular right now, I think Gantz would definitely fit in and would be appreciated in the space. So that's why I think that Gantz takes the number 3 spot over both Shaman King and Rave Master. The number 2 entry on my list goes to Princess Jellyfish, an anime that came out in 2010 with 12 episodes by Studio Brainspace. And Brainspace is responsible for the animes Cheer Boys, the original Durarara, and Kyokai no Rene, among other series. Now, this is another one, just like Gantz, that had a lot of material that was never adapted into an anime, and on top of that, still has a lot of attention on it. and that is more recent attention than Gantz. Princess Jellyfish had a live film back in 2014, and it actually just had a 10-episode TV drama back in 2018, which I didn't realize. But then again, almost anything school-based is kind of getting a TV drama series lately, so I kind of should have realized that. But with that in mind, with how recent the attention to Princess Jellyfish is, why not give it an anime reboot? I mean, like I said, there's a lot of different story arcs that were never covered in the manga, let alone the live film or the TV drama. So there's a lot of content out there that could be made into a fresh new anime. I mean, come on, the original only lasted for 12 episodes, and that definitely was not enough to satisfy the very dedicated fan base that Princess Jellyfish has. So with that in mind, that's why I personally think that it's the number 2 series on my list. But I still think that there is one series above that that just edges it out that could deserve that top spot and is most likely to get that anime reboot. So, before we get to my number 1 pick, I definitely thought that there should be some honorable mentions. So, with that in mind, my honorable mentions include Zatch Bell. Yeah, that's right, Zatch Bell. You guys remember from Toonami. That one, I think, definitely deserves at least to finish the arc that it had at the end, because oh my god, it was dark but amazing. Batum, Dead Man Wonderland. Oh man, poor Dead Man Wonderland. And Ice Shield 21. I'd be lying if I didn't say that I really want a reboot for Ice Shield 21. And it might be a little unlikely, but out of any sport series, I think that it definitely deserves a reboot. So I'll put it there. I know I teased in the last video, no Ice Shield 21, but I can't help but say it. I think it does deserve a reboot, even if it's kind of unlikely. But that being said, the number 1 pick that I have for the top anime that needs an anime reboot and is the most realistic choice, in my opinion, to have a reboot is Maid-sama. Sorry for those of you guys out there that were looking for a shonen series as my number 1, but I am going the shoujo route with Maid-sama. And some of you might be wondering, why would you pick Maid-sama as your number 1 pick? And I think the most obvious reason for that is Fruits Basket. If a shoujo series like Fruits Basket can get adapted into a modern anime reboot today and be as popular as it is, I definitely think that Maid-sama is probably the most logical choice after that. So let's discuss the original Maid-sama a little bit. So the original anime for Maid-sama came back out in 2010, and it had 26 episodes in an OVA in 2011 by JC Staff. And JC Staff is responsible for the Day Day Live series, Bakuman, Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, and the second season of One Punch Man. So, despite that last entry in the list, which I have my thoughts on season 2 of One Punch Man, a lot of series on this list you might have noticed are ones where they had multiple seasons, and or they were a second season to a season adapted by another studio. So, I think that's one of the big reasons why Maid-sama has a very realistic shot at actually having a reboot done, because JC Staff has already done several series in its long history of anime production where they've done multiple seasons, and I think it's actually very realistic for them to make a reboot of Maid-sama, because for those of us that watched the original anime, and for those of us that read the manga, the anime only gets to the part where our 2 main characters finally get together at the school festival. But there's a lot that happens in their relationship after that. And it actually has a really great ending. Like, it had, I want to say it had a manga chapter or 2 that came out like a year or 2 ago for the people that were like, hey, more Maid-sama content. And people freaked out. Like, that's another one like similar like D and Angel, where people were freaking out that new content was being made, and the unfortunate reason why D and Angel didn't make it on this list. Because had D and Angel actually been completed, it might have snuck into number 5 and beat out Rave Master, if I'm being honest. Because I think people are definitely riding the shoujo wave right now, and the studios want to put out more content that people like. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, another honorable mention that I probably should have put on the list is Ouran High School Host Club. Because that's another popular shoujo series that definitely could get a reboot realistically. But in the meantime, I think that Maid-sama is the one that, out of all 5 series that I listed, is one that I do think needs a reboot, and it's the most realistic choice for the anime studios out there to actually create. So again, I do apologize to any of my shonen fans out there that were really rooting for a shonen series to get put on the list. But if I'm speaking honestly, a lot of the ones that need more anime content out there fall into that Bleach category, where there is already a lot of content that was actually made for it, that was 100, 200, 300 some episodes, where rebooting it isn't that realistic. It's more realistic to give it a final season, kind of like Fairy Tail is doing, or, you know, like Cardcaptor Sakura, how they adapted the Clear Card arc. It doesn't matter necessarily how long ago that the original anime ended. I think a lot of fans would really love and appreciate if they came back and, you know, adapted that final season. But to do a full reboot for them, I, again, think is unrealistic just because of how many episodes they would need to adapt in order to fully reboot it. And I get it, you know, there's a lot of filler content, you know, in Bleach especially, that could be cut out. But even when you cut out that content that's the filler, there's still a lot to adapt. So, with that in mind, those were the 5 series that I chose as my top 5 anime that need a reboot, and again, that I think are the most realistic choices. And I do apologize for anyone out there that is hurt in any way for me not listing their series that they really want to have an anime reboot for in my list. I can only cover so much stuff, and these are the ones that I thought, in my opinion, had the best chance. But, with that in mind, I want to hear from you guys. What anime do you think I left out on this list that should have made my top 5? Which ones on my list do you think deserve to be in a higher spot, in a lower spot, or maybe one of the honorable mentions actually deserve to, you know, be in my top 5 instead? Or maybe I missed something else just completely that should have been in some capacity in this video. Let me know in the comments and we can get this discussion started. For now, I'm Axel Blaze. Thank you guys for watching this video of mine, keeping along with my journey up to this point. It's been a crazy month of May leading up to June, but I thank each and every one of you for hanging out and watching as many of my videos as you did. It's been very encouraging coming back to YouTube, so I thank you. Yeah, you were expecting a snarky episode ending right there, weren't you? Nope, this is one full of gratitude. Thanks, guys.